It was a valiant effort in New York for the Dallas Stars, but they fall by a final score of 3-1 to the Rangers. And all the hype, the anticipation of seeing Logan Stankoven turned out to just be a tease. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Stars.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer on 105 Through the Fan and play-by-play voice of the Chippewa Steel. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Happy Wednesday, Stars fans. Hopefully you're enjoying the week so far besides the back-to-back losses and another great effort for the Stars, but they come up short last night. We thought we were going to get our first look at Logan Stankoven, and then he was loaned back to Texas, unfortunately. So we'll have to wait for his NHL debut. I'll give my thoughts on that situation as the schedule continues to get harder. The grind continues for the Dallas Stars. We'll open up today's episode with some of my thoughts on the 3-1 loss last night against the New York Rangers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. Back-to-backs are so tough, and every year you have scheduled losses, and this was one of them last night. It was a tough spot. Back-to-backs are already as hard as it gets, and that's without having two defensemen out. That's without concerns of Matt Duchene being in the lineup, even though he was and played very well last night. And yeah, that's what you kind of get. Another great effort. They played really hard. They buckled down. Wedgwood made some very, very good saves, but Igor Shesterkin, who's a world-class netminder, wins the game for the Rangers. And if you don't execute in these spots when you're going to be tired, you're going to have some latency in your game, you're not going to be as sharp, you fall short. And that's what happened. Shesterkin was the best player in the game. It ended up with a 3.87 expected goals against, had the highest game score of all players on the sheet last night at 2.87. He was fantastic, and every time the Stars had some looks, especially in the first period, they hit a couple of posts. He made a couple of sassy glove saves, and the Stars took it to him, really, especially in that third period. Had a great final 20, ended up with a Corsi for percentage of 79%, outchanced the Rangers 14-2. They gave them all they could handle, but could not solve Shesterkin. They played really well in front of him, too. The Stars got interior, but did not get a ton of high-danger looks on top of the crease. I thought New York did a great job of boxing out the Stars. They had good positioning, and they blocked a ton of shots, 22 blocked shots in front of Shesterkin last night. And once again, it's a redundancy over the past two games, but it's a great effort, but you don't get anything out of it, unfortunately. And that's just the way hockey goes sometimes. They really buckle down, especially on the penalty kill. They went 4 for 4 in that area. They even plop in a power play goal. Miro Heiskanen picks up his 7th of the season. He played just over 24 minutes in his return to the lineup. You won the special teams battle, but did not win the goaltending battle. Wedgwood would have liked to probably have the Kako goal back, but it's a well-placed shot, and that's what they needed. And it ends up being the difference maker last night. Thought the PK was phenomenal against a crew that had been rolling coming into the game. They were 3 for 5 the other night on Sunday. They were 8-1-1 in their past 10. And that's another thing to add to an already tough situation, playing in a back-to-back where you're shorthanded and you got to take on 2 top 5 teams in the National Hockey League. You do get sort of a break here on Thursday against the Ottawa Senators, and you would love to pick up 2 points there. Unfortunately, not able to get anything out of the game last night, but this is really good and a good stretch, I think, for the Stars to endure. You have to face some of that adversity. They're going to learn a lot about themselves in the next 14 days, whatever it is, 5 games in like 10 to 12 days. It's insane. And they're playing really, really quality opponents. And they played well. They played well. Yeah, they were loose defensively in the first period, especially off the hop. Didn't love the sagginess of the defense. They weren't pressuring enough. They just kind of allowed New York to roam around, get whatever they wanted, especially in one-on-one situations, and gave up a ton of point-blank chances in front of Wedgwood. The puck possession game, the puck management from both sides was a little squirrely at some points. And Shesterkin just came up with enough big saves, and Wedgwood really came up with enough big saves to keep the Stars in the contest. They outshot New York 17-6 in the final period. You could not have asked for much more with what they trotted out there, and just did not get the goals necessary to pick up a win. Power play at points looked pretty ugly. Even the goal they scored was kind of scrambly, kind of broken. And Ben was able to set up Miro, who had a wide open net. They had a chance to tie it late too, and they just can't seem to concoct something together in order to score a big-time power play goal. They kind of got a gift on the penalty in front of Shesterkin that Pavelski drew. It's like, okay, you can score here and maybe you can buckle down and at least get the game to overtime, and just never tested Shesterkin, never got a shot on net. The first unit needs to be rearranged. Different personnel, please. Jamie Benn on the flank makes no sense to me. Has 1 power play goal all season long. I understand you want to get him going, but why Jamie Benn is being used as a point of entry, being used on the flank, on the wall, a lot of standing around, and he played a good game. He had a couple of great looks. Shesterkin stoned him in the third on that centering pass from Suter, but you have Johnston and Duchene. Throw one of them out there on that top unit, spread the love around. You put Duchene and Johnston on that top unit, that gives you someone with speed, and I know Rope's on it, but it gives you another layer of speed and dynamic playability where you can get into the offensive zone and set up. That's the biggest gripe I have with the first unit. If they win a faceoff, they're fine. They can work it around the perimeter. Robertson needs to get more looks too. Too many times he's kind of a no-show on the power play, which is a travesty. They need to get him involved. Find a way to get him involved, because he's kind of just floating over on the circle, and he's a bit hesitant to shoot at points, I think. And I think if you give that top unit a little more flair, someone that can create some offense, because it's just 2 perimeter. Pavelski set up in front, but they're not funneling anything there. Teams are pressuring them on the flanks because they're flat-footed. They're not moving. They're not creating time and space for each other. They're putting themselves in negative situations, is what I like to call it, where you're just kind of passing your problem along, and you're in a situation where you can't make a play. The PK recognizes that. They flash out, knock it away, and then they clear. So, and look, the power play cashed in. They were 1 for 4 on the night, but you had a chance to tie the game, and then you wouldn't have put as much pressure on your 5-on-5 offense. You don't have to put as much pressure 6-on-5 late in the game, and it ends up being a difference maker in the contest. If you're able to just get the one more. Look, the power play's been okay lately too. Well, the second unit really has. It's something I've brought up time and time again. It's scoring that power play goal, that one, and they couldn't get it last night. PK's been really great as of late. It had a horrid stretch there at the beginning of the month, but they're 16 for 17 in their last 6 games. They've really bowed up in that area, which is a good sign moving forward. Just need to find a way to grab some points and holster some points, but it's a tough spot either way. I have a hard time being really, really upset and infuriated with the game, just due to the fact playing a really tough team on the road. You're shorthanded, and that all adds up to a loss against a Rangers team who played really well. And they didn't really play really well, I guess. Shesterkin played really well. And they just kind of parked the bus and said, Shesterkin, take us to the finish line. And he did. So, well, time to move on to Ottawa. Time to move on to the Senators. Hopefully you pick up a win there. Try to salvage a road trip. Take 3 out of the next 4 points. 4 out of 4 would be great, and you'll feel good about this road trip. But it's a tough stretch, and I think this is going to pay dividends down the road. They're dealing with injuries. They're dealing with these situations where they're the underdog, so to speak, where they're not supposed to win. And I think that's good because they've had to outscore. They've out-talented a lot of other teams, and you're seeing some effort and some grit and some pride show up over the past few contests. And hopefully that continues to carry over game to game. Let's talk about Logan Stankoven. Oh, we thought we were going to see him. Oh, we were all anticipating the NHL debut of the 2021 second round pick of Madison at Madison Square Garden, of all the places. And it didn't happen. Let's jump into it next. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed and hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast, Locked On Stars. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your team or bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just had the NBA All-Star game this past weekend. So the final stretch is here in the NBA. Everybody jockeying for playoff position. And it's nice that the NBA has some parity this year. It feels like you don't know which teams are going to win it. And I don't follow the NBA all that closely, albeit, but it's nice that you see a nice mix, an array of teams here down the stretch that have a chance to lift the NBA championship later this spring. So go ahead, make some money while you're watching the basketball slate on a Wednesday. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Wow. We thought we were going to get Logan Stankoven. We thought we were going to get his NHL debut at Madison Square Garden. Oh, it would have been glorious, but it was not to be. He did participate in warm-ups, but it was mentioned that he did not get a rookie lap. He did not participate in line rushes, which gave the indication that he was not going to play. I thought they weren't going to bother sending him all the way to New York to not play him. But Mike Heika, of course, the wonderful staff senior writer for the Dallas Stars, did mention on the X machine that he had to get up at 4:30 to catch his flight out to New York. So it may have not been the best spot for him to make his NHL debut. But look, I got caught up in the expectations, the anticipations. I think we all did. But you all know my thoughts. Y'all have heard me talk about Stankoven throughout the season. It's okay. Let him develop in the American Hockey League. If you have injuries, of course, bring him up. And we thought this was going to be the spot for him, but Duchene was good to go. And also, it's not like you're putting in a tired Duchene since he played the night before. I think if Duchene played against Boston and he wasn't playing tonight, well, obviously he would have been in because you would have had a more fresh player in Stankoven. And if it wasn't that serious, let Duchene rest sort of thing. So it was unfortunate, and I understand why people were upset. We all got our hopes up, and now we have to wait a bit longer. But it was interesting. You get the recall early in the morning, and then 20 minutes into the game, he's loaned back to the Texas Stars. They play Grand Rapids next, so that's probably where Stankoven is headed. But it would have been a ton of fun to see Logan Stankoven for the first time. So we just have to wait a bit longer. I saw some takes out there in the Twitter sphere about how could you do this to him? What is this going to do for his morale moving forward? That's a bit heinous, if you ask me. He's going to deal with a lot more adversity in his career than being called up and not playing. Because look, he'll be just fine. I think he has a ton of confidence. You should. When you're the leading scorer in the American Hockey League, he's going to deal with a lot more problems in his career than being teased of playing in his first National Hockey League game. And look, we don't know the conversations behind closed doors. It could have been something like Pete DeBoer mentioned. Look, you're probably not going to play if Duchene's good. So just come here. If we need you, we need you. If not, then we'll move forward. Right. I don't think they would have sold him this false dream, and probably a reason he didn't take a rookie lap. They probably said, look, Duchene's good to go. Go out there, soak it in, and when the time is right, we'll get you in. But look, that means the Stars are healthy, and he'll probably get his chance at some point, maybe moving forward, right? There's still a lot of runway. The Stars are not out of the woods yet by any imagination. Who knows what Dodonov and Lundqvist and Hakanpää. Obviously, that has no real factor on if he plays or not, but that's what the Stars are dealing with right now. And if the Stars go down another man, I'm sure Stankoven will be the first one called back. So we have to wait. But it would have been a lot of fun to see Stankoven make his NHL debut. So we did get teased a bit, but not upset by the whole situation behind it. They needed a body. And you could say, well, why didn't they just bring up somebody else? Well, he's deserved his shot. He has deserved it by every measure of the play. He's deserved it, and it turned out not to be last night in New York. Duchene ended up coming in and playing very, very well for Dallas, but no Logan Stankoven. So we have to wait for the 2021 second round pick to get his first taste of the NHL. And maybe it will be shortly, but as of right now, Stars are healthy enough up front where they do not need his services. But they still have a grind ahead. Let's talk about that, and as we're leading in to the trade deadline. Stars are just going to need some help. They need some help, and they're going to need it fast. Let's talk about that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's what brings home the winning trophy and is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're needing, what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Hey, Stars fans, be sure to check out Locked On Sports today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free TV channels app. Locked On Sports today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On. Be sure to follow Locked On Stars on YouTube, subscribe, even on the Twitter, the Xverse. You can follow me at Joey the Jet 19 as well. Tons of, I could say, moral victories over the last 48 hours for the Dallas Stars, and moral victories are really never enough in this state of the National Hockey League, but you have to like the way the Stars have played against some really, really good clubs. But they got to deal with Ottawa on Thursday. Then you have Carolina. Then you have New York and Colorado on a back-to-back, the Islanders, and then Winnipeg to finish off the month. And you've heard me discuss this February schedule a multitude of times, but look, we've come to the realization that the Stars need help, but they need to bring in another body that can play top 4 minutes, that can help this D-core and really make this team formidable down the stretch. And I know they're dealing with injuries right now to Jani Hakanpää and Niels Lundqvist, but as we all know, it really isn't good enough even when they're fully healthy on the back end. It's good enough to win games, absolutely, but I don't know if it's good enough to win a Stanley Cup or get to the Stanley Cup, to get over the hump. And I don't want to get to a point in 3 weeks where we're sitting here and still discussing that the Stars need help because they didn't get it, or they're relying on Lundqvist and Hakanpää to come back and provide the extra juice. Pouliot's played really, really well, actually, in his first 2 games. Let's see how many minutes he's played. I thought he's played really, really good. So he just played over 10 minutes. He was paired with Esa Lindell last night, and he's been viable. He's absolutely been viable, but we know that's not going to be enough moving forward. And I can sit here and harp. They need a defenseman. They need to go out. They need to test the market. And at this point, it doesn't need to be the flashy name. It doesn't need to be the Tanev, so to speak. It doesn't have to be the Noah Hannafin, right? Just a really serviceable defenseman that can come in and just chew up some ice time. It's a perk if he can kill penalties, if he can be on special teams, or he can just chew up top 4 minutes. They need to find a comfortable pairing with Suter or with Lindell. maybe spread some mobility around within the pairings, because Lindell and Hakanpää, once it comes down to playoff hockey, they're going to be swimming when you have teams that are forechecking as hard as they are or as physical as they're going to be. They just do not have the mobility to quickly exit their zone enough. They're going to get hemmed in, and they're going to give up a ton of chances. They need to find someone that's mobile, hopefully somewhat young, and you're going to have to be willing to give up a first-round pick, maybe a second round, and an asset. And I know Delandry at one point was probably on the table, but he may not be now with Dadonov being on LTIR, and he's played really good. He's played really, really good. I love what Delandry has done as a body of work. And with the injuries you have now, maybe you're handcuffed with what you're able to do, or maybe that opens up some more room where maybe you are interested in a depth piece. Maybe you are interested in a bottom six forward. So maybe you could package something together to grab a Tanev, and maybe you get a bottom six depth piece, someone that can play at this level, right? To, inquire somebody from Philadelphia. I don't know, even know the Flyers are playing well. Sean Walker seems to be being shopped. Sealer is another guy that looks really interesting over there in Philly. So there's options out there. And I just feel like the toll the Stars are going through here in the last, 30 days, I think is good for them, but also it can leave some damage, I feel like, moving forward. And they're playing well. They're absolutely playing well. But I just feel like we would all feel really, really good about where the Stars are if they just add some depth. They need some depth to the position, so they're not taking on water here in the next month or so, because down the stretch, you're playing a lot of good teams. You're playing a lot of hockey. That can lead to some challenges in itself, as we saw last night. Just not as aware. You have some lapses. Your goaltender has to be perfect to some degree in order to pick up points. And I think if you can just fill in some holes, they can do this thing. They can absolutely do this thing, because they're really talented up front. Even with the Dadonov out, they have a ton of firepower. Miro and Harley are just a dream pairing. They just keep getting better with every second they play on the sheet together. And I'm at the point, I feel like, where you don't want to miss out on the potential that this team has. I don't want to sit back and then in the spring, you're talking about what could have been. You didn't go all in. You didn't give it a chance. And I would love for the Stars to just go all in. And they've had a track record, Jim Neal has, of going out and making moves at the trade deadline. Absolutely. But go all in. Go all in. Try to force the issue. Grab somebody. Get somebody in this lineup and go for it. Go for it. Nothing to lose. You're going to be set up for the future. And I'm not saying go all in, giving up Stankoven and Bork. I'm not advocating for that. But if you need to give up a few first-round picks, if you need to give up a second-round pick here or there, you need to give up a Delly, Craig Smith, make something happen. Seriously, make something happen. I would love to see that. Because they're good. They're a good club. They really are. So, yeah, tough one last night, however. Stars fall 3-1 to the New York Rangers. Back in action tomorrow against the Ottawa Senators. We'll, of course, break down the game tomorrow. We'll preview it. I'll get you the ESPN's best defenseman rankings. Where does Miro Heiskanen fall amongst the NHL's best defensemen voted on by NHL players and executives? So stay tuned for that tomorrow. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Enjoy your Wednesday, and we'll see you tomorrow. So long, Stars fans.